Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We're Salveo Vascular from Johns Hopkins University. I'm Nathaniel Moeller, the COO. With me, I have my Chief Regulatory Officer, Adam Clark. And with our team at Salveo, we have developed what we believe is a disruptive platform technology that will revolutionize central venous catheters, or CVCs. Now, the technology that we're extremely proud to have invented is the Sonicade. It's an accessory device that's compatible with all CVCs and emits imperceptible high-frequency vibrations that propagate throughout the catheter. Now, the Sonicade integrates seamlessly into current care protocols, and at a cost of just $20 to us, we can significantly undercut our competitors while still bringing in a large profit. Now, why do we need the Sonicade? Well, there are about 10 million CVCs implanted into patients every year. And a CVC is the device that Adam has that's inserted into the subclavian of a patient and guided down, resting just outside the heart, with a small portion remaining external to the body. Now, CVCs are life-saving and life-sustaining devices used for critical clinical applications like administration of chemotherapy, total parenteral nutrition, and hemodialysis. They can be implanted for a short amount of time, such as days, or long-term, up to years. But unfortunately, these life-sustaining devices are riddled with problems. About 28% will become dysfunctional after just 1 week, and 87% of long-term CVCs will become dysfunctional over their lifetime. Additionally, there are 280,000 cases of catheter-related bloodstream infections every year, and 90% are directly attributed to CVCs. Unfortunately, 90,000 people die every year due to CRBSI. Here's an example of the type of morbidity that a patient could experience if their catheter becomes blocked and liquid backs up into their skin instead of going into their vessels. CRBSI have a mortality rate of up to 25% per case. But in order to combat this, we have developed the Sonicade, which is screwed onto the standard lure of any CVC at the time of implantation by an interventional radiologist. Now, it emits these high-frequency vibrations that propagate along the entire catheter all the way to the tip. There's extensive literature showing these types of vibrations successfully prevent bacteria and other cells from sticking to the surfaces of indwelling medical devices. Essentially, it ensures the surface continues to be in motion, preventing anything from sticking. More specifically, this has proven to be effective in catheters, like Foley catheters. So by doing this, we're addressing a huge economic burden on US healthcare, which is about $2.3 billion every year, and that's only for CRBSI. Now, the root cause of all of this is biofilm, which is basically a sticky mixture of bacteria and other types of cells that allow more cells to continue sticking onto the surface, building up and blocking the catheter or releasing toxins into the bloodstream. Now, if that sticky surface doesn't exist, the body can naturally filter out the bacteria instead of it sticking onto the surface. So at Salveo, we're eliminating biofilm, and in doing so, we will eliminate all of the downstream morbidity and mortality that's associated with it. Our competitors have solutions that are simply unacceptable. An example is the current standard of care, which was implemented to reduce the rate of infections. But 90% of hospitals don't adequately implement infection prevention techniques, and it's extremely labor-intensive. Coated catheters cost $150. But the coating wears off after 2 weeks. So patients who need their CVC in for up to a year are basically out of luck. The Sonicade meets all of the requirements that are shown here. And in doing that, we ensure that the CVC remains safe for the patient during the entire time that it's implanted. Looking specifically at blockages and infections, our competitors try to address one or the other, never both. That has left a significant area for innovation, and Salveo Vascular is filling that with the Sonicade. And in doing so, we will prevent unnecessary death and suffering in patients already struggling with debilitating diseases like renal failure and cancer. Looking specifically at the components of the Sonicade, I'd like to highlight the septum, which ensures that the CVC remains a closed system, prevents bacteria from entering. Perhaps the most important component is the piezo element, which receives a small electrical input and transforms that into mechanical vibrations, which it propagates along the inner and outer surface of the catheter all the way to the tip. The standard lure connections on either end ensure seamless integration into current care protocols. Now, the CVC is always attached to the Sonicade, but the Sonicade isn't actually activated until we clip it into the sonic patch, which contains our simple oscillator circuit and our power source. The power source has a minimum lifetime of 3 months. Now we have two current embodiments for this. The first is as a necklace for patients who would like to be more mobile. The second is an adhesive patch for patients who may be more bedridden and could have tubes or other devices in the same location as their CVC. And we've done significant testing to show that our vibrations can successfully propagate to the tip. We started with computer simulations that show our vibrations do not dampen along the length of the catheter. We have validated this with published research. Now we moved to the bench afterwards, and we took different measurements, hundreds of measurements actually, on different size catheters at differing points along the length of the catheter. And our results were that the frequency does not change from the hub to the tip. More importantly, that's completely independent of voltage, meaning we can use a lower cost, lower size battery. Now next, we'll repeat these same tests in cadavers, which is a simulated human environment. We've completed successful bench testing that shows a 60% reduction in bacterial mass compared to current CVCs. Now moving forward, we're going to be working with the pathology department at Johns Hopkins Hospital using an IRB-approved protocol with human tissue to ensure the Sonicade can maintain the CFU count of a CVC below 100, which is a clinical definition of a CRBSI. Now on top of our extremely strong clinical value proposition, we have a very strong financial value proposition. An average 300-bed hospital loses $4.4 million per year due to these complications. Now, if we can only reduce this by 60%, as our initial results show, we would save the hospital $2 million every year. Additionally, the Sonicade pays for itself within 1 week by displacing other ineffective technologies. A regulatory pathway is clear, where a Class II device will be cleared through the 510(k) pathway. We have a clear predicate device, and our recent consultation with regulatory counsel, as well as a meeting with the FDA, have only strengthened our confidence in this strategy. We're currently mitigating several risks, the first of which is whether or not vibrations will affect the viability of drugs infused through a CVC. So our labeling will include that the Sonicade is detached from the patch at all times during use. Now you might ask if this is going to affect the tissue. Well, literature shows that it doesn't. However, we're going to be validating this within an already approved animal trial, as well as a small human trial before submission to the FDA. We're currently validating the effectiveness on the bench, and we'll move to animals within a month, and then humans before we submit to the FDA.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Now, the worldwide market for CVCs is 25.8 million units per year, resulting in $780 million in revenue. There are only a few key players in this field, and it is expected to continue to grow at 5.6% annually. Now, of these 25.8 million units, there are 10 million in the US, 6 million short-term, and 4 million long-term. These 4 million long-term are our initial target segment. We are targeting the long-term catheters because they serve as the worst-case scenario for both infections and occlusions, and therefore we will be able to deliver the greatest clinical impact to the patient and the doctor. Furthermore, by proving effectiveness in this worst-case scenario, it'll also ease our transition into the short-term market. We decided to develop an accessory rather than a new long-term catheter because this is a much easier regulatory pathway, leading to quicker profitability, but also we do not have to compete with the major catheter manufacturers who are already out there. The Sonicade is a platform technology that will attach to the standardized lure of any catheter. This opens up the opportunity to expand to additional markets, totaling $6.5 billion. The value chain of our device is that of a typical medical device. A contract manufacturer will assemble it, and it will reach the end user through direct sales, third-party distributors, or through a GPO. And who are these end users? It'll be the hospital administrators of departments such as infection prevention, clinical oncology, and interventional radiology. And their purchases are largely motivated by the preference of their clinical staff, which depends on the ease of use, the safety, and conformance with the current care standards. Now, to make sure that we meet all these requirements with the Sonicade and we fit into this market, we have spent over 1,600 hours on clinical rotations in Johns Hopkins Hospital. So why will they buy the Sonicade? A hospital-acquired infection has been classified as a never event. This is an event that is simply unacceptable in a healthcare setting. When these occur, the hospital has to report, which hurts their reputation, and they're further recommended to waive all care costs in these instances. Furthermore, since 2008, CMS no longer reimburses the costs for hospital-acquired infections. We plan to break into this market by developing a small, direct sales force that will allow us to leverage the networks of the world-renowned clinicians on our advisory board to establish additional relationships with key opinion leaders. This will also increase market awareness and give us a momentum for adoption. We will launch a second clinical trial with the intended endpoint of showing the increased safety and effectiveness of the Sonicade as compared to our competitors. Finally, we will actively pursue partnerships with GPOs, third-party distributors, and catheter companies because they already have distribution channels in place that we can utilize. Our reimbursement strategy is very simple. We will not pursue specific reimbursement for the Sonicade. And this is because the hospitals will be incentivized to purchase the Sonicade and avoid the downstream costs of the complications with the CVC, not to be reimbursed for the Sonicade itself. And this is actually the model that is currently successfully employed by our predicate device. We've conducted an extensive IP landscape analysis, included that we do have freedom to operate and patentability. We have filed provisional patent applications around both the Sonicade and the Sonic Patch, and although Hopkins owns 65% of these filings, we do have the first right to license to exclusively license at a very low rate. In a short time frame of 5 months, and with $30,000 seed funding from a graduate program, Salveo Vascular has already accomplished significant development milestones. This has included identification of the unmet clinical need, device concept generation, and formulation of our regulatory strategy. Now, this seed funding is sufficient to push us through our next major milestone, which will be our first stage of animal trials, slated to begin within the month. We are looking for an additional investment of $2.9 million. The first stage of this will be used to hire an experienced CEO to supplement our management team, as well as pushing us through our 510(k) submission. The remaining funds will be used to obtain that clearance, as well as launch our second comparative clinical trial and launch a third clinical trial to expand into additional markets. Looking at a summary of our financials, you can see that we will enter the market in year 4, will become cash flow positive in year 5, and we will expand to additional markets in year 7. Now, we structured our business model such that we have many appealing exit points tied to key development milestones. While we're still early in the development phase, our preference will be to license or sell our IP. However, we do believe in this technology, and we are poised to drive it all the way to commercialization with an acquisition in 2017 or early 2018. Now, we realize that upon any interest in investment, due diligence will be performed and a conversation will begin. That being said, we present these numbers as a proposal for the start of that conversation. With $2.9 million in funding and a negotiable equity of 35%, we can deliver a 20x ROI in just 6 years. Now, we want to go back to our timeline and reiterate that this will cover a clinical trial for market entry, a second comparative clinical trial, and then a third clinical trial for expansion into additional markets. Our core management team has over 20 years' experience in the medical device and healthcare industry. This includes expertise in research and development, manufacturing operations, project management, business strategy, and quality and regulatory, both internationally and domestically. We have assembled a strong industry advisory board, and I'd like to point out Dr. Yusuf Yazdi and Dr. Chris Jeffers. Dr. Yazdi is the former corporate director of science and technology at Johnson & Johnson. He's also the director of our bioengineering program. Dr. Jeffers is a partner at a high-profile DC law firm and has been advising us on our IP strategy. He has also successfully started 2 medical device companies. Our clinical advisory board consists of clinicians and researchers from Johns Hopkins. Dr. Stephen Su is an instructor of radiology, and he's also our primary investigator. Dr. Andrei Levchenko is a leading researcher in the biofilm field. In conclusion, Salveo Vascular has identified a large unmet clinical need. It kills 90,000 patients per year and costs the healthcare system over $2.3 billion. We are very proud to have invented the Sonicade, a low-cost and effective solution to this problem. Our team is experienced, dedicated, and will drive this project to success. With $2.9 million in funding, we can deliver a 20x ROI in 6 years, as well as the peace of mind that you are helping to save healthcare's most vulnerable patients. Thank you.